Perhaps it should go without saying that housing is an essential part of our thriving community. Our vibrant neighborhoods and the people who live within them help make Arvada great. However, some of our current and future neighbors struggle to afford safe and reliable housing within the city. Fortunately, for the past 44 years, today's guest has worked to provide attainable housing options for our community. Manager of Housing Preservation and Resources, Ed Talbot. Ed, thanks for being here, and thanks for sharing your thoughts on housing and on public service in our community.
Well, Ben, I'm really pleased to be here, and frankly, a little humbled to basically have this time with you to talk about this issue, so thanks for that.
Great. So to start things off, could you share how you came to choose a career in public service, maybe how you, or what brought you to the city of Arvada?
It's interesting because this goes back some time, right? Back to basically the mid-70s. And when I was going to school, I developed a real interest and passion for city planning. I figured this is something I want to do. So my education was really based on trying to pursue that. So I got my bachelor's, I was in California. I moved to Ohio, went to Miami of Ohio and got my master's in urban geography of all things. And what do I do with that? Well, I had the opportunity with several of my classmates to get a one-year internship with the city of Hamilton. While I was there, we did some work. I learned a little bit about what was going on, but it came to an end. So where's my job? Where am I going to go next? So basically, all of us piled into a Maverick. We knew that the American Planning Association was going to have a job fair at their conference, so we drove across the country, found the cheapest hotel we could, went to the job fair. I interviewed, and I was fortunate enough to be selected to be an assistant planner with the city of Arvada. That was going to involve fence permits and minor subdivisions. Little did I know that at that time the Congress had passed a major piece of legislation, the Housing Community Development Act in 1974. This brought a range of potentials and programs that could be a benefit to the city. So my boss said, "Did you do any work on this?" I said, "Well, yeah, I did some research back in Ohio." "Well, do you know about community development block grants?" "Yeah, I learned a little bit." "Well, I want you to work on getting that grant for the city." "Okay, I'll do my best." The other one was that there was the Section 8 Housing Assistance Payments Program. That provides basic housing assistance to very low-income households to help them basically afford housing that they can get into as quality. So, do you know about that, Ed? So I did some research on that as well. "Well, we're going to do that. What do we need to do?" "Well, we have to form a housing authority so we can apply for those funds." "Let's form a housing authority." Here I am just starting a job, right, 1976, and all of a sudden I got these large assignments. So I did. So we worked together. We basically applied for this Community Development Block Grant, CDBG, and that started that process of funding that's come to the city since. We formed the Arvada Housing Authority. City Council went with it, and basically we applied for the Section 8 program, and we got that. And then what happened is that one thing with the Section 8 is that you can apply these vouchers that under the Section 8 program, they go to the tenants, but you can also take these vouchers and assign them to a housing project to help with the financing picture for it. And we had a couple developers approached us, private developers, saying, "We'd like to use this to do some housing." And so basically we worked with the developer, and over the course of about 2 years, we saw the development of Arvada House. And that's the 88 unit structure right at West 58th and Kipling. And that provides affordable housing for seniors, for very low income seniors. All this happened in about 2 years. Here's this guy basically from Ohio, went behind the years, really working on a lot of important projects. It was mind-blowing.
So you got into it right away and had some very impactful, very important projects from the very beginning of your time with the city. I think my main takeaway is that it all started with a road trip across the country. Right?
It was the road trip, and I don't know if you've ever seen a Maverick, but it was tight.
Yeah. Well, I want to get serious for a second and ask you, could you talk about housing generally? Like what, we truly do take it for granted if we have it and we're fortunate enough to be able to afford a safe and reliable place. It's great, and we all appreciate that. But can you talk about what happens when someone in our community, one of our neighbors, isn't able to rely on a safe and secure place to live?
Especially in this environment right now, this is a tough struggle, is that indeed, because of what we're facing right now, we're seeing situations for folks that are in existing housing or trying to find housing are finding it more difficult. We're seeing rents going up. We're seeing vacancy rates down for rental housing. We're seeing basically price increases for housing for purchase, and we're seeing difficulty from folks who want to break into that market to buy a home, and then people either in rental housing that want to stay in that housing, but finding that with a rent increase they can't do it, or they're looking to rent a place in the city and they can't find something they can afford. And this is creating, over the last couple of years now, a tight situation for a lot of folks in the community. It's a struggle for a number of them.
And how's that changed? That's where we're at now, but how has it kind of changed over time, over the course of your tenure with the city? Housing as an issue, maybe some of the work that you've done over the course of your tenure with the city. How's that evolved?
Yeah, I think if we look at right now, and it touches on a base, what are maybe three main challenges? And I'm going to think of them in terms of three that really strike me that I see that have evolved over time. Arvada is an aging community. We're aging with our housing stock, and our population is aging. The proportion of seniors in the community is really projected to increase. That means the city is going to face challenges maybe it hasn't seen quite before to serve the elderly population in terms of services or the housing that's provided. On the housing side, in terms of its age, we're seeing issues in terms of the aging of the housing stock. And what can we do to make sure that our housing stock stays at a good quality level for our citizens? That's a big one. I spoke a little bit about, obviously, the issue with rentals, in terms of folks having a hard time either staying in a place or finding a place. This leads to a third item, homelessness. Homelessness is something we've experienced in the community, but it's gotten to be a worse problem in the community. What do we do about homelessness? It's a difficult situation to handle, and I think it's almost looked upon too simply. It's not just an issue of what I would call houseless. Those that can't find any place to stay. They're living in their car, they're under a bridge, whatever they're doing. What do we do to help and work with that population? And that's a tough one. But it's not the only piece of it. The other part is those who are homeless, meaning they don't have a home. They can find four walls and a roof, but it's not a home. They're bouncing from an apartment, maybe into live with some relatives, live with some friends, and especially with a family with kids, they don't have a home. There's no stability there for them. And dealing with those two parts of the homeless, what we'll call the homeless situation, is a tough one, and one that we're going to increasingly be taking a look at.
Great. And so you're describing these complex issues. They're all interrelated. I understand that the city's working on a housing strategy right now. Could you walk us through what that looks like and what the plan is moving forward to develop that?
You bet. And I think it's an important initiative the city's undertaken. I'm really pleased that we're putting that attention to it. The city over time has developed a variety of plans and policies and the rest of it. Normally they're kind of encompassed in the comprehensive plan, but the comprehensive plan covers a wide range of things, streets and parks and infrastructure, what have you. There were policies in there that would relate to housing and affordable housing, and preservation of housing. We didn't really have a strategy that was outlined. How are we going to address this? And we're facing some issues now that are become more extreme and important. So the decision made, let's develop a particular structured housing strategy the city can pursue. Two main components of the housing strategy. Number one is assembling the data to understand what the situation with housing is, where our challenges are in terms of our housing stock, and then looking forward, what does that mean for the community? The second part is using that knowledge, let's get a toolbox. How can we as a community, given the resources we have, given the structures we have, try to address the issue of housing preservation and providing for a diverse range of housing types in the city? Let's look at the tools. So you spread those tools out on the table and you say, here they all are, and there's a variety of potentials. Let's see what fits the community, what's our capacity, work with the council to identify those tools so we can choose what fits, and then use that, put those tools in the toolbox, and then try to use those tools to address the problems we have, or we projected that we'll have.
So when you think about the strategy and the work that you're doing, as you know, a lot of what we do in the city, we're trying to align our work with community priorities.
Correct.
And we have focus areas and priority areas that the city council has identified that align very much with the community's goals. And when you do your work, how do you see that aligning with those priorities and supporting the direction that the city is taking?
I'm going to take one of, I think, the primary goals of the city as an example. economic development. How to provide for, a tax base and an appropriate mix of retail, commercial, industrial uses in the city that you would find in a balanced community. That's been a priority for city council and leadership for years. Well, think about it. When you think about the things in the city that are probably most important in terms of its economic vitality, what occupies most of the land? Housing. What is most of the infrastructure geared to serve that the city provides? Housing. What do most of us spend our money on as citizens? Housing. That is an important part of the economic structure and fabric of the community. And I think that the work that we do in trying to encourage a diverse array of housing types in the city, especially on the affordable end, which is the more difficult end, really leads to a healthier economy for the city. So working on housing and housing preservation, I think, is an important part of the effort and the focus the city has had on the economic development of the city.
Okay, Ed, I was hoping you could talk a little bit about any new or developing programs to help our community stay in housing, or if they already have a place to live, are there resources to help them retain their home?
Yeah, and we've actually embarked on 2 programs that I really feel good about and really kind of get right to the heart of the question you're asking. And I'll just hopefully touch briefly on both of these.
Sure.
One we just put into place the last couple of years, and we did it in partnership with a great nonprofit called Brothers Redevelopment. Well, we've seen in the community, as the community ages, one thing seniors want to do, they want to age in place. They want to stay in their home if they can before maybe something happens where they got to move on. But sometimes they're handicapped with either a disability or some features in terms of their health that make it difficult to stay in the home. So we fashioned a program to say for those households who want to participate, it's voluntary, that indeed we will help through Brothers Redevelopment with the resources necessary so we can make improvements to your home that'll allow you to stay there. Some examples would be like ramps, wheelchair ramps to get into a home. Improvements in a bathroom like grab bars, opening the size of doors and such, so that they can stay in the home. That program is called Safe and Accessible Arvada, and we just started that. And I think that's an important addition to the range of services we provide. The other one we came up with is we have a program called the Essential Home Repairs Program. We started that way back in 1980 or so. Been one of the longest running rehab programs for single family housing, I would say, in the state. It's been a success. We've done over 1,000 units through that. But what we were finding is people would come with what I'll call one-offs. I'll give you an example. Senior citizen in her home, she has a huge cottonwood in the backyard. She doesn't have the money to take it down, but the thing's dying. It's posing a threat to her house, maybe her neighbor's house. What can I do? I don't have the money. I don't know what to do. What we wanted to do with Help for Homes on those one-offs is to provide them assistance, again, in partnership with Brothers Redevelopment, say we will come in through them and be able to try to take that tree down for you so we can eliminate that hazard and take care of that situation as a one-off. And that's another program I'm feeling really good about because we get those calls, and people say, what can we do? What can we do? And now we have basically an option for them that we can present to help them.
That's wonderful. I mean, it must be the latest in a long list of different projects and accomplishments you've achieved over decades of service. I'm going to ask you to reflect on that a little bit. Are there any accomplishments that stand out above the rest? Something that you're particularly proud of working on during your time with the city?
Well, that's what a question. I'm gonna pick 3, and hopefully I can do this fairly with not a lot of time. Is that one we did back in the 80s? Is that we saw some of the neighborhoods around Old Town Arvada and the oldest section of the city were showing some trends of concern, decline, issues with the housing. So we said, let's put a plan together, working with the citizens in those neighborhoods to take a look at those particular neighborhoods and what can we do. That plan was called the Southeast Arvada Neighborhood Development Plan, the SAND plan. What we did with that in working with the neighbors there is say we're going to designate NSAs, or neighborhood strategy areas, about 100 acres or so, and we're going to fashion a series of improvements to deal with the problems in that area. And then working with the folks in that area, basically try to identify what they see as most crucial and important. So we did that. We did for the Reno-Loberg NSA and the Columbine NSA. And that over a period of about 8 years, we did a variety of improvements in there. I feel particularly good about that work. A second one, we set up the Essential Home Repairs Program. And that program has run for some period of time, has had good success. I mentioned, I think before, that we had about 1,000 units that we've taken through that program. That was designed to provide financial assistance to homeowners to get work done on their homes. A lot of the folks out there that are wanting to stay in the home are seniors. Either ain't got the money, or they're concerned about getting a contractor in the home, and they're not even sure what they need to do. Through that program, we assist them through a process to hold their hand, provide financial assistance so they can rehab the home and bring it up to a good standard. One was one we didn't expect. Back in the early 1980s, we had the S&L crisis, the savings and loans crisis.
Sure.
One of the biggest banking failures in this country since the Great Depression. Over 1,000 savings and loans went out of business. What happened in the community, we saw, because of foreclosures and what have you, 5 apartment complexes ended up being abandoned and boarded up. They became centers for vandalism, for crime, decline in neighborhood quality, obviously of concern to the citizens. What can we do? So we said, we got to address this, we got to help this. So what we did is we were able to access almost $1 million in federal grants. That leveraged about $3 million in private investment, and we work with private investors, private property owners to come in, buy those properties and renovate them. And the offshoot of that was, as part of our effort to work with them or bring that financing to make the package work, they were preserved and dedicated as affordable housing. That one really felt good, because you could see at the end of the day this mess of a building, and then after some work, basically it was returned to the housing stock as quality housing. Those 3 have been a particular, a good feeling to me in getting those done.
Well, when you talk about a good feeling of working to support your community and helping others, could you just expand a little bit on your time in public service, what it's meant to be able, to work for the community and for the city of Arvada?
You know, I was thinking about this because I thought there'd be a question along this line, and I thought, how am I going to do this? And what came to mind is a word: enable. And I think on several levels, this ability to enable things to happen probably characterizes a lot of the work I've done. At the community level, trying to enable the city and its leadership to basically obtain the resources and the programs and put them into place to enable them to make a change in the community to address needs. Next level, I feel that it's so important with my division, my team in housing preservation resources, is to enable them. That's one of my jobs as a manager, to bring them the resources and the structure, hopefully the guidance and the leadership, so that allows them to get the work done that we expect them to do, and to have their back when it's necessary. And frankly, also to enable them to have a little fun on the job. We spend a lot of time working. And yes, there's a lot of important work that needs to be done, and it takes time, it's frustrating, and you got to handle it, but we should be able to have a little fun. So try to enable that with my division. And at the bottom, most important level, is to enable the capacity of citizens in our community to live in a stable, quality housing environment, and hopefully be able to achieve steps that might get them to a better place in life, especially if they've really been challenged. That word, enable, for me, I think kind of sums it up.
That's great. A lot to reflect on. You are approaching your retirement. What will you miss most about working in our community and with the city?
You know, the obvious one when people ask that question said, I'm going to miss the people. You know why they say that? Because it's so true. I'm going to miss the folks on my team. I got a great group of folks I work with, and I'm going to miss that interaction and working with them toward a common goal or goals. I'll see them once in a while, but I'm going to miss that. I'm going to miss that feeling of focus in the day. When I get up, I know there's things that need to be done. I can contribute, I can help on this and work toward a goal. That focus will be lost, obviously, not working at the city. The accomplishments that come, I'll miss that because we've had accomplishments. One of the things I won't miss is the stress and the frustration, the mistakes I've made, and sometimes the failures, that some things just don't work out. But that issue of basically working with the team, the accomplishments we've been able to achieve with that, and having that focus in the day, I think I'm going to miss that.
Well, we'll all miss you as well. You know, in addition to being a public servant, I know that you're a passionate environmentalist, a volunteer, and a member and support our community in other ways outside of work. What are you going to focus on now that you, once you've left the city team, what's your next phase look like?
That's another question. You know, I've never retired before, so this is a learning process for me. What the heck am I going to do with this, right? So I guess there's three things. Again, it seems things come in threes, right? Is one, I'm going to enjoy the potential and the time I'll have with my family. You know, I've had that time, but I'd like to have more of it. My wife is starting a new business, and I really want to help her with that. And I'll have the time to do that now, to help her in getting that business off the ground and being a success. So that's one of the things I'm seeing that I'm going to be interested in doing. I travel a lot. I really enjoyed traveling, and that started way back in the 20s. I was actually didn't have a lot of money, and wanted to go to school and pay for it. So I had the opportunity to join the Merchant Marine. So about 5 years, basically, I was serving on deep water ships, freighters, tankers, and what have you, all over the Pacific. That gave me an eye to travel and to see things I probably wouldn't have been able to see before. And I think that engendered a real interest in me in travel. Mm-hmm. Part of that also came on about 30 years ago as I really developed an appreciation for the ocean and the great wildlife and the beauty that we see there. So I became a scuba diver, and I've been diving for a long time. And as part of that travel, a lot of that travel has been oriented to diving. And I want to continue that, as long as the body allows me to, and I have the money to do it, right? The third one, and you alluded to it, there was a time, and you may remember this, is when the astronauts went to the moon. This was Apollo 8 in the late 60s. They circled the moon. And one of the iconic pictures that they brought back is it shows a crescent of the moon, kind of lifeless and gray, and rising above that is this wonderful blue and white orb. It's the Earth hanging in the darkness of space.
Blue dot.
Blue dot, yeah. And looking on that, it hit me, and it's been part of me, and something that's important to me is that's our home. We only got one. We can't trash it and then sell it and move down to the house down the street. That's our home, and we got to take care of it. And we're not doing a real good job about that right now. That's something I also want to put more time into in terms of what I can do as an advocate. I've been on research expeditions as a citizen scientist, working in a variety of places in the world on environmental issues most closely aligned with the oceans. And I want to take some time as well to pursue that.
Well, I want to be the next to thank you for all of the service you've provided our community already, the decades of dedicated public service, and it sounds like more service to our community and our world to come. Ed, thank you very much for being here. And again, thank you for the service to our city and our community.
I want to again thank you for giving me this opportunity as I sort of bow out and move on to another stage, so to speak. But I also want to say it's been a real pleasure. It's been an honor to serve my community, and particularly the people that are working hard as city employees within the structure of our government to do so much for the community. But it's not just them as well. I want to say thank you to the nonprofits, to the business interests, and others that are in the community that also have an interest and want to serve the needs of the community, who've helped me and my team in doing the work we do. I want to say a big shout out for that.
Great. Well, this concludes today's discussion. I want to again thank Ed Talbot for joining today's program. To learn more about the City of Arvada's programs and projects, including the city's housing programs and projects, and the latest opportunities to get involved, visit arvada.org. Please also follow us on social media and check out the latest engagement opportunities on Speak Up Arvada. And remember that you can always watch live City Council meetings and other programming on Arvada Channel 8 and recorded meetings and additional videos on the city's YouTube channel. Thanks for watching.